My name is Michaiah Coleman, and I'm the mobile team lead at CrossComm. We are a client agency out of Durham, and I'm an NC State grad, and my tech background is started in ed tech, but now I get to do, well, ed tech mobile specifically, but now I get to do all sorts of mobile stuff. So very happy to be at CrossComm. Let's see. So a little bit about our agenda today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what is Apple HealthKit, what is Google Fit, a little bit of comparison between the two, how to set both of these up, and then a little bit of a demo. So let's get started. So what is Apple HealthKit? Apple HealthKit is a framework and a little bit of an app created by Apple. It was first released in 2014 at WWDC with the announcement of the iOS 8. So it's been a while since then. And now we have a whole bunch of different things that we can do with HealthKit. It launched ahead of the Apple Watch Series 1. And that's really the Apple Watch, I feel, was the impetus for creating Apple HealthKit so that developers can leverage any of the health data that you get from your Apple Watch. It also launched with Medical ID, which is a card for first responders and doctors to get a snapshot of the patient's medical history. And so that really is mostly so that on your open screen, even if it's locked, the first responder or the doctor can quickly look at your medical history if you provide that on your phone. And then there's been some new upgrades since then. We can do ECG data and cardiac health data. So there's also two types of data that I kind of define here in the HealthKit space. One of them is static, and the other one is dynamic data. And so let me talk a little bit about that. So the static data is things like blood type, date of birth, vaccine status, which is very relevant now. And that static data is really just things that won't change, obviously. You could also include things like height and weight in there, but those are still a little bit dynamic, and all of that goes into the dynamic data. And so dynamic data are things that are constantly changing. So your blood pressure, which goes up and down during the day, your heart rate, your sleep heart rate versus your resting heart rate versus your active heart rate, and things like blood oxygen. All of these things go into exercise data, which your exercise data. So when I think about HealthKit, I think a little bit about how all of this stuff is all together as opposed to Google Fit, which is pretty much just going to be your fitness stuff. But this health data is very dynamic. Your exercise data couples in with blood oxygen, your heart rate, and your blood pressure. So let's move on a little bit. Actually, there was one more thing. All of these dynamic health data things can't just be pulled from your Apple Watch. So some of these, like blood pressure and even like your body temperature, are going to be from Bluetooth solutions or Internet of Things solutions that are all connecting to your devices. And so we can talk a little bit about good examples of uses of HealthKit in Apple's ecosystem. So we have Apple Fitness, which if you have Apple Fitness, you know that's that three little rings that you see on your phone and on your watch. And then there's Apple Health, which really acts as Apple's visual store for all of your health data, right? And so anything that's in HealthKit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, but anything that's in the HK Store, Health Store, which is Apple's singleton object, which you can use to request data between your phone and any of these other things, mostly all of that data will end up in Apple Health. So you can look at it there, and you can look at it on your phone. So, or in your own app if you are going to make one. And so let's talk a little bit about Google Fit and Google Health. And you're like, wait, this is a talk about Google Fit. What is Google Health? I'll get to that in a second. Google Fit is a framework and app created by Google to track your fitness data. It was first released in 2014 at Google's I/O conference with the launch of Wearables, which is their Android OS that runs on a watch. So pretty simple stuff. It launched with the first Wear OS devices and pairs well with Fitbit devices, which Google just bought. So, well, they're kind of on fire, but that's beside the point. And then the Google Pixel 5, there's also updates that are not just from Wear OS. So there are a couple updates that are pretty cool. The Google Pixel 5 does heart rate and respiratory measurements without Wear OS, and it uses your camera. So I've actually not experienced that. It's actually really cool that they can even do that without having to have a wearable involved. And so let's see, what else? Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, and so we can talk a little bit about Google Health. And so Google Health is much more of a research component to all of this. It started, Google Health was like their first foray into health data for users and for research. So it first launched with a public API in 2008, and it was mostly volunteered user data. So this is 2008. So the world was not ready for wearables and was not ready for you personally owning your health data and being able to present that data to your doctor or even like how Apple Fitness, you can compare any of your exercise data against other people. So that aspect of the world was not even close to being what it is today. So it was discontinued in 2012 because of that fact. There was basically no market share and no people were not adopting this technology yet. And so they relaunched in 2018. Actually, and one of the other reasons why they discontinued it in 2012 was because the medical industry was not ready for it either. So they've relaunched in 2018, and it's a bigger department. So now it contains things like Google Brain and DeepMind AI teams. It even includes Nest Labs, and I think it even includes So Nest Labs is like the Google Nest, which is like their home Amazon Echo kind of ecosystem. So you can all of that, any of that data that you can take from a wearable and things like that, all go into all of this IoT health data. And so there's 4 main focus areas for Google Health, which is consumer tools, clinical tools, imaging and diagnostics, and research groups. So what all is in Google Fit? A framework for accessing and entering health data that can be used any type of way. So there are a couple data types that you can do: activity, sleep, body, nutrition, location, and health. In those, we can talk a little bit about each of those. So activity data types typically include things like your metabolic rate, so like your calorie burn rate, mostly just that. So activity is for mostly exercise data, and that a lot of that does couple with location. So if you have like a cardio exercise where you're actually running around outside or moving around, you can have that coupled together. And things like sleep, obviously sleep is your REM cycle, things like that. Body is more about like your height, your weight, your like movability, things like that. And I think both of them even do like gait, so like how wide your gait and your step, basically. And then health tracks like blood pressure, blood glucose, blood oxygen, things like that. But those are still going to be either manually inputted or they're going to be coming in from a non-wearable but still third-party IoT solution. So let's talk a little bit about comparisons between the two. Availability of Apple Health and Google Fit. So Apple HealthKit is really only available on iOS and iOS and a little bit of Mac OS. You can find that stuff. Google Fit you can actually leverage on both platforms. So if you're going to be making a fitness app, you can make one that does put that data in both places. But really, if you only want to leverage one, then Google Fit might be a good solution just for that. But obviously, if you want to do like a serverless thing, then these are good. But if you're going to have your own server, then you can ingest that data and then put it on both if you really needed to. The data, so there's way more data points on HealthKit because it's not just for fitness. Google Fit does say that they're like, hey, medical devices, we don't actively connect to medical devices that are like, if it's explicitly a medical device, Google's like, we're not that. So that they're not liable with any of your data. Apple is a little bit different. They are willing to take that risk, and what that risk does go onto you as the app developer. So be careful there. Wearables, Apple Watch only for HealthKit. Any Wear OS is very, very easily outfitted with Google Fit. There's a couple of Wear OS things that are made by Samsung. And so those, I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but those devices first use Samsung's own data store. So that's a little interesting thing. Both have really good design docs. So you can always go in and look at those. And then once again, the security, Apple is willing to blur that line between medical and practical devices, such as your Apple Watch, which can act as a primary medical device. And again, Google Fit's like, no, we're not doing that. So let's see. So the setup. I'm going to talk a little bit about the primary singleton object for Apple is the HKHealth Store, which has a really easy to use design. It's got great accessor functions and gets a lot of that utility right out of the box. That's piece not supposed to be there, but what are you going to do? So this is basically your single access point for any data that you want to get out of out of Google's HealthKit cloud architecture. And I can show you a little bit about that. There's going to be a little demo about this a little bit later. So what do I mean by right out of the box? So this is Apple's, basically anytime you make that first request for permissions, you get this sheet out of the box. So you don't have to make any of this, which is so nice. And so you can see over here, we're setting up a set of data keys that we are looking for to get to either write to or read from. So you can see here to share versus read. So that's the basis of that. You can see the identifiers, which are enums. So active energy burned, distance cycled, walking, running, heart rate, all that stuff. That's a really easy way to set up that, to set this up. And I'll show you a little bit about that in a second. And then we're going to move on to the fitness Google Fitness API. It's got a really simple auth route for that requesting permissions again. You can see here, so you're going to first request Android permissions, check they're connected, and then do a little bit of scope testing, and then you're going to access that data. And so that's a pretty simple flow that you're going to see a lot. When we talk a little bit about the design pattern of how Google Fit works, instead of they basically have a couple different channels for getting this information. So you can see here that there's sensor client recording, which is like for any like actual session of data. So we're going to be recording that data. Oh, actually, there's also session, but and then there's history client, which is going to be for historical data. Session client, which is for creating and managing a session of user activity. So that's like your runs. That's any like little exercises. The goals, that's more about heart points and steps, and any other goals that you can also create. So there's a little bit of that customization that you can do in any of these things. And then configs, which is more about accessing custom data types that you've created. And so we have a little bit of an example here where we can go through and see that we are accessing Google Fit. We're going to do a read request here. Well, we have a start time, end time as well, but that's a little bit separate. So first, we're going to build that data read request and aggregate specifically step count delta. We're going to set that timer into start and end, and we're going to go into Google sign-in, get account for extension, and then we're going to say, based on our account here, we're going to get that history data, we're going to read that data, and then add a success listener for after we get that data. And that's where you're going to basically be displaying any of that data that you find. Oh, also, this is in Kotlin, not in Java. So that's one of the things. So it's obviously, it's because it's Google and it's an Android setup, you can make it with either Java or Kotlin. I'm a fan of Kotlin now because I started in Swift, and that's my baby. So, yes, yeah. So that readability is always here, and it's so nice to have. And so this is a second example of a data source. This time we're going to be doing a record of recording client. So we're going to be subscribing to that data source up here. So I also want to note that like data source here, there's really only raw data, and that kind of corresponds generally to blood pressure. And it actually, that typing here is really just about saying this is the kind of data, or this is the units, and yeah, this is the unit type that I want that data to come back as. So a little bit about further implementations. Like I said earlier, Samsung Health, which is Samsung's own fitness SDK, launched in 2012 with the Galaxy S3. It's actually available on both iOS and Android, kind of like Google Fit, and it launched on iOS for the first time in 2017. It tracks nutrition and general exercise data, kind of like both, but I can't really say. I have not actually gotten much experience with Samsung Health, but I would say that like it doesn't have the market share that Google Fit and HealthKit have. So that cloud storage of that it's not the exact. So pulling anything from that is do it at your own risk, I guess. Oh yeah, and then the further implementations of HealthKit, there are two companion types of that. So there's Research Kit and there's Care Kit. So ResearchKit and CareKit, they're actually very similar. ResearchKit is going to be more for deploying an app specifically for patients or participants in a research study. You're going to get a lot of really cool stuff. So it has a lot of functionality built in to already help a user sign any of their like consent data, consent to using your data for research purposes. It builds out surveys really, really quickly, which is fantastic. And so yeah, there's things like that for patient reported outcomes, things like that. You can track active tasks for participants and display any charts necessary. So you do get a lot of that stuff out of the gate. The charts and the trends, that's really going to be coming straight from health data. One of the really cool things about Apple HealthKit is that when you pull that data, it's generally already in a format that you can just print out, right? So all of those trends and all those charts and stuff you can get right out of the box and just be like, oh, here you go. And so, yeah, last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about wearables before we get to a little demo. So wearables here, that's really the end-all be-all of Internet of Things devices for connecting to HealthKit and getting any of that data for HealthKit. That passive data that you get from your Apple Watch or from your Wear OS, that's going to be really where a lot of that data comes from. As well as those third-party ones for the extended stuff like blood pressure and body temperature. So yeah, you can always look at the Apple Watch, which is great. It's the best companion for the HealthKit. If you're going to be making an app, you can track so much data with it. It's unreal, honestly. And Wear OS, there's also the Galaxy Watch from Samsung. And there's also this, you can go to this list here, and it's just pages and pages on Wikipedia of all of the Wear OS devices that you can find. So, oh yeah, there's also like necklaces and like other types of third-party dongles that all do fitness tracking. I had a conversation with one of my coworkers about the Garmin system of health data tracking and stuff like that, and because he's had a Garmin for years, since after Garmin, they did GPS stuff, and then they were like, okay, well, we're gonna get into the fitness space with helping people with like mountain bike tracking and stuff like that. So there's a lot of activity in that space as well. Okay, so we're going to take a little look at a demo that I'm co-opting straight from Apple. This was one of their examples that they put out for HealthKit ahead of WWDC in 2018, 2019, so in the before times. And so we're going to run it a little bit right here. And so this is really just like a small game that basically acts as, it spoofs heartbeats. It spoofs heartbeat data and heart rate data. So we can see here that this is that data set that I was talking about earlier, where we're going to be asking for heartbeat data, heart rate data, and heart rate variability. And we're going to make that request. And once all of that stuff goes through, we're going to see that very nice, right out of the box pop up. So you can see here, all of that data comes right up. You can turn it all on, or you can turn it on one at a time. So, and really cool, some of these act together. So when you need beat-to-beat measurements, you also have to enact for heart rate variability. So those two go hand in hand. And so we're going to turn on all of these. We're going to say allow. And then, so this is that little game. It's, see, I'm really slow because I'm looking at it over here. You don't want broccoli for some reason. You do want hot dog. I don't know. But we can look at that data right here. So beat to beat reading, we can see all the different time signatures of that stuff, number of heartbeats. So, and yeah, so you can see all that stuff right here. Yeah, that's that readability that we get right out of the box as well. So that's Michaiah's presentation.